to really get out there, like the motive, and really, it's like, it's one thing if it's not that I'm trying to paint a picture of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
The picture's already been painted. I'm just clear coating it and bringing out the color.
Right.
And
you're focusing in on it.
Right. And it's like, I don't hate the guy. I think it's difficult to not want to have the things that he wanted. Anybody, I think, maybe not everybody or anybody, but I understand to a degree. The problem for me is just, it's just the idea of, if you have things that are going on, and why fake? Because at that point you are ruining anything that comes out of that house. So ultimately, all the stuff that I've captured there, that I know, I mean, if I were to find out that the EVPs that I really honestly truly believe are real,
mm-hmm.
that he faked it somehow, I would literally cry. Because I believe in it. I believe that that's real, and I'd really hate to be fooled. And I
mm-hmm.
can't figure out a way to fake an EVP like that. I just can't figure it out. It's like, the thing is, though, no matter how real I think or believe they are, because he's faked things, and because I'm able to identify that and present that in the documentary, that renders all of the stuff that I believe to be real useless.
Right.
I just,
if you're caught faking once, every single thing you've ever done will be pretty much invalid.
Right, and anybody that, I mean, it's just all tainted,
Mm-hmm.
So that's my whole angle here, because it's just not, he's not helping anything.
No. So your whole thing is trying to figure out why he faked things when he actually had activity there, and why he exaggerated it. Trying to figure out, like, if it's for personal needs, or maybe it's something mental, that sort of thing.
I mean, I'm interested in the why, but it's not hanging me up either. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the overlying question, at the end of the documentary, is a big fat why,
Mm-hmm.
Because there's plenty of whys, this isn't happening fast enough, or I have to create content. I have to create content. I have to have something out this week, and I have to have something out next week. I have to, there's motive to fake things, especially when money is your grind,
Like, money, and his fan base exploded really fast too. So he's always trying to one up the week before with his evidence. So I think that could have been a motive too. Try to make the new followers happy.
It is what it is. I mean, I think I can, just judging from what Marvin gave me, I'm pretty sure I can, if I need to, I can elaborate on how that's just completely untrue. Because within the first few minutes of me being there on that day, I see this spot in his basement, and I'm like, what do you think this is used for? And he immediately was like, it's an old crematory. Or well, we thought it was an old crematory because it was, I looked it up, and it's built to those exact specifications, but it turned out he ended up using it as body storage. And but it was originally meant to be a crematory. That's exactly what he said to me. And it's just like,
what?
Yeah. No one's going to have a crematory in their house. This is not going to happen. His house was never used as the undertaking business. He had a place for that.
Mm-hmm.
If he needed to embalm anybody, which they didn't even do that. If he needed to dress and present the body, he went to the person's house. We've already figured all that.
Yeah.
That's how that worked.
So that was never a funeral home at all?
No.
So that one day Marvin said it was he having a senior moment?
He must have not understood what I was asking him. Because when he said it wasn't, I was like, wait, what? That threw me for a loop. I was like, holy shit.
Oh man,
okay.
when I was filming that, I was waiting for his response, and I was looking at David because I thought David might have been wrong, but then David was just proven right.
Yeah. It was weird because he must have just not understood what I was asking.
Mm.
But anyway.
Have you been able to verify any of Kent's claims as far as the story?
No.
Not one?
No. The only thing that I've been able to verify is that Edmund Lamb lived in that house.
Didn't he build it as a personal residence, though? Or
all of the stuff about, like, it was a schoolhouse, moved to that location, and then all the add-ons that he said happened, I can't verify any of that. I can verify about the Naomi Mitchell story. The story is that, J. Sherman Gray did it.
Mm-hmm.
Kent says that her throat was slashed. That was all he said. Whereas Marvin said much more gruesome things. Why would J. Sherman Gray be hiding in the woods for 3 days if he wasn't guilty?
Did you read the part of the book that David photocopied?
No.
Oh, it gives like a 12-page complete, like, behind the scene, like a complete description of the details. There we go. Minute by minute of what happened. It's really, really gruesome. I mean, you don't want to read it if you're in a bad mood.
Okay, so he forwarded that to me?
Hold on. I know he sent it to me.
Okay.
Hold on, I might have it right on here, though. It's called Naomi Mitchell, The History of Carmel.
Okay.
If you don't have it, I can drop it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look and see if I do. Yes. He might have sent it to my...
So who is Abby in all of this?
Abby... Kent claims that there was an Abby Mitchell. Okay, I do have Naomi Mitchell, History of Carmel. I have Carmel Masonic Hall and Carmel Trivia. I forgot all that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Abby is apparently... He calls her Abby Mitchell. But asking Marvin, who knew all the sisters, says he doesn't know anything about her. Now, if Abby was the youngest, I'm assuming she would probably be about Marvin's age. Because, he's 90 years old. That means he was born when? 1933?
Yep.
That's what happened. Naomi Mitchell died in 1914. She was 14. Abby was supposed to be younger. Rachel's supposed to be younger. If he knew, that's weird, because he says that she was a beautiful young girl. It's weird. I don't know. He knew the family. He lived next door to some of these girls.
Yeah.
He said, So it just does. There is no Abby Mitchell. There is no Rachel Mitchell. They don't exist. And I think the reason why that is going on. I think the reason why he's making those people up is because if these aren't real people that he's talking about, then there's no harm done, right? Because they aren't real. Except for the part where he's saying that Edmund Lamb raped and murdered Rachel Mitchell because she was pregnant with his child and wouldn't get an abortion, which
He really said that?
Yeah, and I don't know how common abortions were back in 19. I don't know how common abortions were until the 60s. I don't know.
So who's the Butch Powell that he said did it after that?
Butch Powell. I don't know that person. I haven't heard anything about that. And I didn't even bring that up to him then. I had never heard that name.
Oh, because he, Ken backtracked away from the whole Edmund did it story and said that someone named Butch Powell did it.
Where'd you hear about that?
David told me.
Okay.
He said it was in one of the videos.
Okay.
He would know more than I did because, he was there the entire time.
Right. Yeah, it seems like he's let up on. I don't watch. I really don't watch. I haven't watched his videos like since before I went there. I watched some of his videos and I was like, this is interesting, and I gave my whole spiel on the first doc. But the whole thing seemed fishy, it all seemed fishy. And if it's too good to be true, it probably is. That's like the main thing. I'm a big advocate of Occam's razor, which is the most reasonable explanation is probably the explanation.
Mm-hmm.
So it just got to a point where once I knew that he was faking stuff, it's like I'm not, I watch fake stuff on purpose, like Mindseed. I'll watch that because I like to see their camera tricks. I like to see how they're doing things because those guys, their production value is pretty good. But I can spot where the fakery happens in those videos pretty well. And it keeps my wits about me learning how things are faked. Kent has a video out that came out this year, and it's a shadow figure video, and it's not like the other ones where it's not. I don't know if it's practical effects. If it is, he's doing it differently than he was before, where it was like something wrapped up in black on the side of the bed. There's a thing that he does. It's like it looks like a shadow, like a legit shadow, and it very well could be like the shadow of a doll that's projecting an image on the wall somehow, and he's moving it really fast. These are things that I think I can try and replicate and see how close they are to what he's presenting as actual evidence. But yeah, it's just once I figured out how he was doing things, and it's all, like I said, it's all practical effects. Some of it, he does a lot of camera cuts too.
Oh yeah. Fast cut and blur.
Yeah.
Jump cut, rather.
A lot of overexposure or underexposure on his camera. I'm also curious if he is taking the video, dumping it onto his media, media maker, and then filming the screen just to give it another level of
distortion.
Yeah. He does that with his EVPs too. So he showed me. He was like, okay, this is how I have an EVP, right? He says, say he has an EVP. He's like, I digitally enhance it, and the way he showed me that he digitally enhances it is whatever the EVP is that's on his phone. We'll say alleged EVP. Whatever alleged EVP is on his phone, he takes a digital recorder and basically he plays the video through the phone with the speaker of the phone, and then uses his digital recorder, another device, to record the recording. Yeah, now it's digitally enhanced. And it's like, no, it's artifactually fucked at this point. If you record a recording, and this, anybody, maybe not anybody knows this, but anybody who tries it, like, it's pretty easy to figure out. If you record a recording, the quality goes to shit with the first recording. So there's no digital enhancements. It's completely trashed. And the other problem is, because again, I believe that there are real EVPs going on. Let's say he's recording his recording with his digital recorder and captures another EVP. Like, that's tainted now. You know, and then he slows the stuff down to where it's just garbled junk. And what happens is your ears begin to just make sense out of it. Some things are really interesting. I'll give him that. But the EVPs I captured, I didn't need to digitally enhance. All I had to do was remove noise from it. And it sounded great, you know.
Dustin caught EVPs there too, and his team went.
Yeah.
So he can also verify that. Because he always said there was activity, he just said it wasn't a full-on haunting or anything remotely close to what Kent says it is.
Yeah, alright. How about this? Can you tell me a bit about Dustin?
Dustin Marcia is the founder of Central Maine Ghost Hunters. He's been doing it since 2012. Really great guy. He's helped a lot of people out. And it was Ken who reached out to him to come investigate the house. Did Kent ever show you photos?
He showed me some photos, yeah.
Where they have, like, windows and reflections and...
Yeah.
Yeah, because he sent those to Dustin, and Dustin told him flat out, we throw those out because they're not concrete. There's nothing. Actually, your brain will try to make a face when there's not a face, type of thing.
Yeah, he gave me one where it was like, I actually have him talking about it in an interview where he's telling me about he went to take pictures across the street, and in one of the pictures he saw a face in the upper window, and then in another picture there's a naked woman standing at his window. And I'm like looking at this picture, and it's like, you know, believe it or not, I've seen my share of naked women in person.
Really?
And I don't see a naked woman in this photo.
How many has Kent seen, though?
Say what? Be right, yeah. His wife.
Yeah. And you said you got that from the house across the street?
He went across the street and took pictures of his house. And I have the photos that he's talking about. So I probably will choose to share that. And I might even make that same joke. Now, but there is one photo that I'll actually go ahead and share it here to you that I felt was interesting. Yeah, this one's kind of interesting. There we go. But it could be anything. You know, that could be a close-up of a plant, blurred. You know, I mean, there's nothing concrete in any of the photos that he's shown me.
Where was that taken?
I don't know. I have no idea. Here's the naked woman. So, oh, there we go. Let's see here.
Where?
Right.
I see something that looks like a woman's face in a window.
Yeah, I just don't see it. And then also, while I was there, apparently my shadow is a shadow figure just looming over me. He was trying to convince me of that.
From that photo?
Yeah. It's clearly my shadow.
Is that when you started questioning him? Like, at what point during your visit did you think this guy's full of shit?
Well, that was definitely... So, I already kind of had it in my mind that he was full of shit, but I hoped otherwise, you know? But, yeah, like, it kind of started right away, you know, like, I meet him and he's nice and he's very warm and he's very welcoming and he seemed like, just like what you said, you know, he's very good at talking with people. He has the gift of gab, you know?
Everybody's best friend quality.
Right, you know, but I also, I've dealt with liars of the worst kind, and I dated 2 of them. So I was with one for 4 years. I was with one for a year and a half, and the one for a year and a half, like, god damn, that was worse than the one I was with for 4 years. I've worked with people who lie. I worked with this guy. He told me about, I might have told you this, the guy I delivered pizzas with, this guy always had some kind of story. He told me that he was in this really badass Mustang, this like 67 Mustang with this friend of his, and they went to get gas, and the guy is pumping gas and smoking a cigarette. And the dude is this guy telling me the story is in the car. Well, the cigarette ignites the gas fumes, which ignites the gas in the car, which then causes the whole car and gas station to completely explode. It throws him out the window, and he smacks into a brick wall. And that's what killed him. So he died, and while he was dead, he found this woman who was clearly some sort of goddess, and he realized that it was Aphrodite, and she told him that it was not his time to go, and she sent him back. Right? This is something that this dude I'm not joking, this dude told me this shit. And it's like, at this point I already knew the dude was a liar, but it's like, do you think you're smarter than me? Or you're just so lonely and worthless that you've never done anything with your life, that you feel that you have to tell these stories in order to get people to like you? Like, I look at all these angles as, why do people lie like this? Some of it's just flat out mental issues, and I think Kent suffers from that. If he's telling the boss of anglers that ghosts fucked with the tapes and made it look like he ate a BLT, and there's gotta be mental issues there. I mean, if you expect somebody to believe that, I mean, I have a hard time believing somebody thinks they're that smart. I don't know, maybe not. I mean, people come from all walks of life, and I don't know what's going on in Kent's head. But
ghosts change the tapes.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's just it's outrageous. And it's like, so I'm at his house, and I think within the first few minutes, he shows me his special agent badge. And when he showed me that, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can find that on Amazon. But, you know, so I'm
special
not,
police.
Yeah, I'm not fooled by your facade. Now, if I didn't know who he was and didn't have a reason to be suspicious of him, he could have fooled me. He could have fooled me. I'll give him that. But at some point, I would have caught on, just like everybody else does, right? Because Kent will take an opportunity to throw in a little white lie.
Oh, yeah.
And he does it often, and I've got him doing it often on camera. And the reason why I think he does that is it's similar to like when a serial killer leaves a mark, leaves some sort of evidence of themselves or their signature in some way. They're doing it to toy with you. They're just staying under the radar just enough, but they're throwing out these little white lies in ways to just, it's like a rush.
Yeah.
It's a rush. You know, the thing about the shadow, I think he was probably trying to gauge me to see how susceptible I was to his suggestion. So what he does is he tests the waters a bit. He wants to see, can I fool this guy? Because he was, you know, I told him from the get-go, and I have footage of our first phone call. I have the entire thing where I told him, you know, I'm coming there with a skeptical point of view. I believe that you have things going on, but I'm also not going to be persuaded by suggestion. I told him that, and he was like, yeah, okay. You know, he seemed, which I think, you know, it was just the way I told him. I mean, he seemed fine with it. So I think when he was doing these things, he wanted to see if I would, you know, follow suit, if I would fall in line. Now, Luke, especially on day 2, is way more accepting of Kent. And I think the reason why is because Luke's non-confrontational. He's the complete opposite of me. Where, you know, he doesn't want anybody he's not calling anybody a liar. Luke was there to verify evidence for me. That is what his role was. Okay. But I mentioned to him on the first night, I think Kent is full of shit. And he was like, well, maybe he's crazy. So we started bouncing an idea off of each other. I thought, well, maybe, you know, if you're living in a house like this for so long, you know, and you do have paranormal activity, at what point do you lose the filter to be able to decide what is paranormal and what isn't? Because how long does it take before every little click and clack and house expansion and sound in your house, how long before you can't tell a difference? Right. You know, and that can have an effect on your mental health. It definitely can. But I think the deception is not something that the house did to him. That's something that he's had his whole life. Now, where does it stem from? I don't know. I don't know what his mother was like, or what his father was like, what his childhood was like. I couldn't get a real answer out of anybody except for people that knew him when he was a child, and I'm not going to go looking that deep, you know? But I can imagine that there was probably a lot of insignificant feelings in his life where he felt insignificant, or he felt like he wasn't interesting or something, and so he felt he had to lie. And people, I don't know, man, it's weird. It's weird that, you know, and sometimes, you know, maybe he's been called out before. I mean, obviously he's been called out before.
Oh, yeah. I saw it happen. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, how did he handle that? How did he handle getting called out?
Oh, he got really angry, actually. Because one of the servers at the restaurant said, Kent, if you did half the stuff you said you've done, you'd be 100 years old by now. And he, like, glared at her and walked away and was like, she's on my shit list now. But she was just pretty much saying what everybody else was thinking, too.
Right. It's like, you know, I don't know. It just, there's no, I mean, we can analyze, you know, as much as we want to. There's no real answer, you know, at least I'm not delving that deep into that. Being a liar is one of the worst things that you can be. You know, period. And being a liar on a grand scale where you're fooling hundreds of thousands of people that's pretty remarkable and terrible. And, you know, for one one thing, it's like, you have this poor woman who lost her children or lost her child in a car accident, and she comes to him because he tries to exploit it, and she finds out about him, and she's desperate. She's just lost her children.
Yeah.
She's emotional. She's susceptible. And she needs closure. She needs help. She needs something. And he offered that to her. Now, that's a slippery slope. How do you... Is it justifiable? She feels better, so maybe we should let her have that. You know what I mean? Who am I to take that from her? But I would rather know the truth about something. I would rather know the truth. You know, no matter what it is, I would rather know the truth. And there's a lot of people out there who just can't handle that. And depending on their situation, what brought them to where they are, you know, it's difficult. But when you got somebody like David Sear, who I don't know if he ever met Ginny. She died in 77 or whatever, and I don't know how old David is. I think he's, what, my age, like 42, 43?
David's 51.
Oh, no shit. Okay, so he might have known her.
50,
or
51.
at least briefly.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was that old.
He looks really good.
Yeah. When you get somebody like that, who wasn't looking for anything, he was just minding his own business. And this dude comes up out of nowhere and starts trying to capitalize on you and your tragedy and your history. That's some bullshit. And, you know, the whole thing with Kent bringing out a cross and all this stuff, you know, that worked on David's heartstrings, right? And David admits that. You know, did Kent come back with that cross, or did he have it that day? And the answer was he had it that day, which tells me Kent already knew how that video was going to end.
Yeah, he already wrote it.
Right.
He was just waiting for the time to plant the evidence to sell it.
Exactly. And that shit is despicable. Now, not only are you a liar, but you are messing with people's emotions that they've already put away. You know, they've already gotten over, they've already worked past it as a family, they've already gone beyond it. To bring it up and to do this shit and to pretend to be some sort of hero is I got no place for that, man. And shit like that, like, that's gotta be brought to the forefront. You can't get away with shit like that.
Right. Have you seen that video?
Yeah.
Oh, obviously, it's in the freaking first part. Well, trailer. So you think he planted the bones too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. During the whole time, David is taking the clumps of dirt that he's pulling out and breaking it over his knees.
Good clay.
So that way he's not like tossing. Cause, you know, I mean, it's since the 70s that the shit, if there's bones in there, they're gonna be, you know, it can be compacted with the rest of the earth, you know. So he's breaking the dirt apart on his knees to make sure that he's not missing anything. And then out of nowhere, suddenly these bones just show up out of nowhere. You know, and you know, Ben is gonna, Kent is gonna go and get these bones analyzed and all this, and it never happened. Never happened. First of all, that shit costs money that Kent doesn't have. You know, I don't think that Carmel's police force has a DNA, you know, like...
Carmel doesn't have a police force.
Yeah, right. You know, what is it? It's like one dude, like the town cop or something like that.
Oh, not even. They have an area police that patrol there, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of like St. Albans doesn't have any police. We have Newport, and that's a couple towns away.
I wondered if they still had constables. Because that was a thing on the East Coast for a long time, was constables. but I obviously not anymore. I don't know. Anyway, it just, I don't know, man. You know, and Kent says he found foot bones, and he sent pictures to, what was it he said, a paleontologist or something. I'm not sure.
Does he have any proof of this?
Foot bones, right? Well, then he tells me that this is off the record. He can't present this as, you know, in the documentary because it's disturbing the grave of somebody who's dead. Okay, but I saw a video a few days ago where he's showing people these bones. And it's like, I don't know why he tried to put limits on me with a lot of things. Don't talk about me being a special agent. Don't talk about these bones. Don't show these bones. This is off the record. I signed a non-compete agreement. You can't use any of my footage on YouTube for anything whatsoever.
When did he tell you that?
Once I started diving into the evidence and finding evidence, I wanted to call him and be like, check it out, you know. So I called him, and I had him on a video call, and I showed him these things, and I told him right then and there. I told him like exactly what I was doing at that point. That was the thing. I was like, well, you know, I told you a little bit that I was skeptical of you. I went there to completely debunk you, bro. That's what I went there for. I thought you were full of complete shit. And I'm going through the evidence, and I find this. And I could tell from his reaction that he had no idea. You know what I mean? I could tell that he not only didn't have no idea about me, but he had no idea about these EVPs. Like, he was pleased. Like, he was happy, you know, that I found this stuff. And it was after that was when he was like, you know, I just want you to know I signed a non-compete agreement, and, you know, nobody can use any of these, nobody can use my YouTube videos for anything. And I'm like, okay. Well, then, like, the next week, somebody puts out a top 5s of one of his videos. And I'm like, what the fuck? Because I believed it for a second. I believed it. I was like, this motherfucker. So I'm trying to think, like, okay, I have to get creative. What am I going to do? And then I realized with that next video, I'm like, this dude's full of shit. He never signed anything, you know? And that was when I got a little bit more kind of angry. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, he's hiding something. He's still hiding something, you know? That's when I started, like, really analyzing things a lot more. And I remembered, oh, he talked about this David guy, this hoax of Carmel Maine stuff. Maybe I should reach out to him, you know? That's when I started really, you know, focusing, like, maybe, you know, maybe there's more to this, like I thought there was, you know? And it's like, it's not, it still didn't make sense. Well, why would he fake shit if he's got real shit going on? But it's like, well, let's fucking find out. You know, if that's real, then that's gonna become evident pretty easily. So, yeah.
So he didn't bring anything up about me at all?
No, he never talked about you at all.
So David must have.
Yeah, David brought you up.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have that whole, he brought you up. And I was like, okay, well, can you put me in contact with him, you know? That's how that whole thing started.
Figured. David probably went on for about 3.5 hours.
We had a long conversation. Probably about, like, what you and I are having, you know?
David is, like, really good at communicating with words.
Yeah.
He'll definitely tell you everything you want to know, and then even things you don't want to know.
Right. It was funny because, like, he didn't know what to expect from me when I was like, hey, I'm doing this documentary, and I think it's important that I talk to you about this stuff. And he's like, I know who you are. And I'm like, well, would you be willing to sit down and talk with me about this? And he was like, yeah. And so when I reach out to him, and I can tell he doesn't know. Like, he doesn't know me at this point, so he doesn't know what my questions are going to be like. He doesn't know. And he tells me flat out, he's like, I was hoping that you would get, I've been kind of looking forward to this, because I'm thinking, like, if you are who you say you are, then, we should be talking, And he was like, I'm glad you reached out, but I'm not going to lie, like, I'm thinking, like, oh, here we go, like, is this guy going to be one of these guys that, how dare you accuse Ken of all this? And it's like, no, it's not how you conduct an investigation. You interview the person, you interview the subject, you interview people who know him, and then you investigate his story. The truth will come out, and that's what you present. That's how an investigation works. That's what I'm doing. I'm not here to fluff shit. I'm not here to suck Kent's dick. I'm not here to make Kent. Well, I'm not here to make Kent famous in the way that Kent wants to be made famous. If that makes sense.
Oh, he's gonna get famous for all the wrong reasons.
Right. If that works, I'm not really looking for fame of any sort. It would be nice to make the money back that I spent on this. But
how much did you end up spending?
It as a passion project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it because I believe ghosts are real. I don't know what they are, but I believe ghosts are real. I believe that there is a way to study it. But the problem is you have people like Kent who falsify things, exaggerate things, and flat out try to deceive you. And because of that, the paranormal ghost world will most likely never be taken seriously by anybody that can actually get down to the bottom of it.
How much of Ken's stuff do you think's faked?
Probably 95%.
Is that from videos?
That's just a number.
Okay.
I could say 90%. I would say most of the shit is probably faked. Because, I don't know how many videos he has. That's not to say all of it is, obviously. I think that some of the stuff is real. I also think, and I'm giving him this, I have no reason to, but I'm willing to believe that he probably did see a shadow figure in his house at one point. But he didn't have a camera on hand. And so the videos of these shadow figures that he's put out, the ones that look halfway decent anyway, is him recreating something that he did experience. I'm willing to give him that, but I don't have any proof of that. I'm just throwing him a bone when it comes to that. But it's hard enough to capture a shadow figure on camera at all, let alone 7 times or more, let alone in the same fucking room.
The same pose.
Right. That just doesn't happen.
Do you think he fakes any of his EVPs?
Absolutely. Most of it, I think, is... I think it's noise pollution of some sort that he's exaggerating upon. And now maybe some of it he actually thinks is real. That could be too. Maybe he hears something and he's like, oh, there's an EVP there. And he might believe it. He may not be doing all of that on purpose. Some of it, though, that Where You Headed one that's at the beginning of the first documentary I did,
mm-hmm.
The more I listen to it, the more I think it's possible. It doesn't sound like somebody from Maine. It doesn't sound like somebody with an East Coast accent. It just doesn't. I wonder if he did a recording and put a filter on it and made this EVP. I don't have any proof of that, but the more I listen to it, the less convinced I am. But it could be, and I'll still say that's potentially a real one. Especially judging on the ones that I've got. But the ones that I have, they have a similar quality, but they definitely all have a similar quality to each other versus have a similar quality to most of the shit that he's presented as EVPs.
When you were there, did you ever meet his wife?
Yeah.
What do you think your feeling from her about everything? Do you think she was just going along with it, if she believes any of it, or?
I didn't talk to her like that. He kind of stonewalled me on that and kind of made me feel like don't approach her and don't talk to her, like, at all. But there was a point where she was in the house on the first floor, and I was down there too, and Kent and Luke were upstairs. And I said to her, I know it's probably very frustrating having strangers in and out of this house very often, so I want you to understand that I really appreciate you allowing me to be here. Because ultimately, whether it's that kind of relationship with him or not, the wife has the final say, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the wife is the one that's gonna say this is okay or not. And I know that I think her thing is, you know what? As long as I'm not around it, I don't care what you do. That's kind of the vibe that I get out of that. She was nice to me, and she said, she acted like it was no problem, and that was the extent of our conversation. I really wanted to sit down with her and talk with her about Kent, more so things like, are you worried about your husband? Do you think, there's some things like, mostly like, that was like the deepest that I was going to dig. Are you worried? But most of it I wanted to know, like, tell me about Kent from your perspective. What do you think about the man you're married to, I also wanted to talk to his daughter, his smoking hot daughter.
How'd that happen?
I wanted to talk to his granddaughter, the one that's in the videos and on the news. But my family doesn't want anything to do with this. Yet his granddaughter's on the news. I mean, now maybe she got some pushback from students at school. That's possible, and maybe that kind of soured her to the idea. I completely understand that, and she's a child. She's a minor. So I would have had to have had her parents' permission to talk to her. But I just wanted anybody to tell me good things about Kent. You know what I mean? I was trying to put his character out there. And like you said, his character is decided by other people, not you. You know what I mean? Not yourself.
Why do you think Kent lied about David?
Why do I think Kent what now?
Lied about David. You think he's trying to, like, discredit his character?
Well, definitely. That's definitely. Mm-hmm. But why? That's the underlying question. Why? I think he's doing it because if he villainizes David to his audience, and he knows his audience is going to back him up, then it's just a way to handle and get a hold of a situation in any way possible. And these people don't know David firsthand. They know him based on how the light that Kent puts him in. So it's one of those things where if you can get ahead of it in that way, no matter what means, and obviously integrity is not something that Kent takes seriously, then it's a defense mechanism. Make the guy accusing me of stuff look worse than I actually am.
Smear campaign.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So the first time you talked to David, did you think it was going to go this deep with the bullshit or anything like that?
I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect what I got. I had no idea about the serial killer, murdering his cousin. I had no idea about any of that. I was going into it blind. I really didn't know what to expect. I had no expectations. I went at it just like, you know, let's let this person talk. Let him tell me his story, you know. Let him talk. Don't judge him. Listen to him. And let him say what he's got to say. And then, you know, of course, it's like, okay, I have to validate those things too. You know, I can't just... There's three sides to every story, right? There's your story, there's their story, and then there's the truth in the middle. So it's like, I understand that things get lost somehow, and his perception is one way, and Kent's perception is another way. But it seems to me that David didn't have everything that David has said has been verifiable. Everything. Everything. I haven't caught David in any lies whatsoever. You know?
I don't think he would.
I never got the vibe that he was lying to me either, and I'm pretty good about that. Like I said, I've been around liars, and they're pretty easy to pick out. Some are more clever than others, but a lot of them are really sloppy. And being a liar is terrible. It's hard because, like, you have to remember all of your lies. If you're going to be a good liar, you have to remember your lies. And no, I don't think, I mean, I can't say nobody's capable of that, but unless you're, like, trained, like a spy, like a, you know, like a cage, like MI6 or, you know what I mean, like CIA shit where they're a spy and that's what they're trained to do. When David's a blue-collar, hard-working dude that lives in Carmel, Maine, he's a good old boy. He's not been trained in any, he's just a guy, you know? So, I never got the vibe from him that he was lying. But again, I still had to verify the things just because that's what you gotta do. If you're gonna investigate, you need to do it right, you know?
How do you think Kent would handle that?
How do I think Kent would handle what?
Knowing that you can justify everything, or that David says, but you can't verify many of Kent's claims.
I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to smear me.
Do you think he already has?
I don't know if he's done it publicly. Maybe to a couple of people. I don't know. I can only assume it's possible he shit-talked me. I mean, it's hard to speculate on that, you know. I wouldn't be surprised. I think especially once the second episode is released, I think I'll probably get some sort of... something might come out of that, you know. I don't know. He says he chooses not to engage the drama.
He is the drama.
Right. I think all of the drama that's happened has been stuff that he's fueled. You know, he's fueled the fire. So I wouldn't be surprised if after the second episode comes out that he tries to push back somehow, you know.
And they will.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm prepared for that.
I posted some things on the Hoax of Carmel Maine page, and quite a few people messaged me telling me that I do not know how wrong I am.
They don't know what you are?
How wrong I am.
You don't know how wrong you are?
Yeah.
Huh.
Like, Kent was never in it for the money, and I would show them the screenshots like, fuck you, he wasn't.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're just doing that to make Kent look bad. And it's like, why would I go out of my way to make the guy look bad?
Yeah, I mean...
Because I don't wish anything negative upon him at all.
Right. Yeah, I mean, why waste your energy?
No.
I don't want anything bad to happen to him either. You know, I want nothing but good things for people. That's really generally how I am. You know, I'm not going to waste... Negative energy is just, it's not even worth it. This isn't about negativity. This isn't about making somebody look bad. This is about the truth will catch up to you one way or another. That's a rule of life. The truth will catch up to you.
Always.
And, I'm the guy that's going out of my way to do it. But again, it's because I believe in paranormal stuff. I've encountered my own stuff before I was ever even at Kent's house. I've had some things happen that I was like, and I don't just jump to conclusions. I learned, I live in an old country home in the middle of nowhere, and when I was growing up, we didn't have air conditioning, so we'd have the windows open, and that was how we cooled the house down here, and or at least get some fresh air in the house. And doors would slam and stuff like that, and I remember freaking out over that. Like, oh my god. And my dad taught me very early on, like, how to debunk things yourself, how to figure out, is there a logical explanation for this, before you ever come in. Because my dad was like, he never really paid much attention to ghosts and stuff like that. I mean, he enjoyed dark stuff, he enjoyed unsolved mysteries, and we would watch sightings, and he enjoyed those stories, and
Hey, Sightings was awesome.
Say again.
Sightings was awesome.
Yeah.
I used to watch that like 1994.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was great. And I loved watching that stuff with Dad. But it was never. My dad didn't have any ghost stories, to tell me about. He never had any UFO stories when I was little. Later in life, he actually did encounter what he believes was a UFO. My mom, however, she and my uncle, my mom's brother, there was a house. There was another house standing on the property where the house I grew up in was located. So there was another house here before the house that I grew up in was built. It got infested with termites, and that's why they tore it down. But that house was built in the 1800s, and there was a man who was in the Civil War, and he had died in this house. He was wounded, he was sent home, and he died here at this house. That's what they told me. My mom would be upstairs, and she would hear, my grandfather would be out farming, doing like, be out in the fields or out working in the shop. My grandmother would be out milking the cows or feeding the pigs or the chickens or whatever. And my mom would hear the back door open, someone walk through the house, open the front door, and close it. And she looked, because she, Daddy must be, in the house. But she looked to see who came out, and there'd be nobody there. My uncle told me that he woke up one night, in the middle of the night, he woke up, and the way he was facing the window, and he slept on the second floor too. And there was a man in a gray uniform staring back in the window at him. But the problem was, the balcony that used to be out there where that window was, the balcony was gone, and it had been gone for years and years. So there was no way anybody could have been standing there. And these are old farm people. They God-fearing people. I'm in Indiana. And these aren't the kind of people who make up stories. So I always found that stuff really, interesting, but I don't know why I went on about all that. I've always been interested in it. And, like I said, I wanted to be able to experience something, and that's why I was hoping that Kent was telling the truth on these videos and the stuff that he was presenting. But again, it was just like, there's just something about these things that just seem too convenient. And You know, it just got. And I've been watching, you know, like Omar Gosh and Mindseed and CJ Faison and all these people that I presented. I've been watching these people, and I realized pretty early in, it's like, these guys are full of shit. Every week they've got a video with some sort of paranormal. That shit don't happen like that. It just don't happen like that. You know, if you were attracting that kind of haunting all the time, then there's something's following you around, and most of the time hauntings just don't, they're not the way that those channels present them. It's just not that way.
Not made to terrify.
Not to say that those things don't ever happen, but oh man, like, it's all horse shit.
Have you ever seen a ghost?
So I love that you asked that. I remember being very, very young. Like, before we moved to the house in the country, I lived in a house in the town of North Salem. And we only lived there for the first 2 years of my life. But I remember living there. I remember my first Halloween. I would have been 11 months old at that point, but I remember it. So at some point, we ended up at the house in the country. And so I'm like 2 years old when we move out there. We must have just moved out there. And I was in the back room. That's where we had the TV at the time. And I looked out, there's a window in that back room, and I looked out that window, and there was a man outside looking up at me. And he looked, at the time I didn't really, you know, like, it wasn't until later when I thought about this memory that I kind of realized some things, but he looked kind of confused. Like, who are you and why are you here? Kind of. You know, if I look at when I think about that face in my mind's eye, he looked confused. And I went to my mom, which she was just in the kitchen, was like right in the next room. I said, Mama, there's a man outside. And she was cooking, and she stopped whatever she was doing on the oven, or on the stove. And she went over to the window and was like, Jimmie, there's no one out there. Which I remember feeling like that, like I was now confused, and I'm so little that I don't know what dead is, and I don't know I don't know about lying. I'm not, I'm a baby, basically, and I'm like 2 years old. So I know what I saw, but she didn't see him. So again, it wasn't until I was in my 20s when I thought about that memory, and I realized that had to have been a ghost.
Any others since then?
Say again?
Have you seen any others since then?
Haven't seen any. No, I haven't seen any ghosts since then. No.
Felt any?
I've heard them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember one time, I have a phone plan, a phone with a family plan through a friend of mine, and he would come out. This is before Facebook Pay or Venmo or any of that, so this is probably 10 years, 11 years ago maybe. And I had this dog, and she and I were in my bed, and I was reading something, I think. Maybe I was texting with somebody. I was on my phone. And he was, my friend had the family plan through. He was coming over to pick up the money that day. That was the plan. He was supposed to come out to pick up the cash. So I'm waiting for him, and it's getting close to 11, 11:30 or whatever. And I'm like, I wonder if he's even coming. And then I heard the door open. My dog heard the door open. Because she would, anytime anybody would come in the house, or would, because my friends think I just let them come in, someone, and they don't have to knock. You know, if you're family to me, so just come on in. So, my dog she's laying in bed and she starts with this like, woof, just letting me know like someone's in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I hear this person walk. They opened and closed that door. They walked through the house, walked through my kitchen, walked all the way over to right next to where my bedroom was, and they stopped. And I was like, well, I guess I better put pants on because Josh is here for the money. So I get up and I'm putting pants on, and I'm like, why isn't he saying anything? You know, and I'm like, hey, and I open the door, and there was no one there. There was no one there. But I could kind of, I could feel like there was someone there, you know? All the sound had stopped, but I definitely...
You could sense it.
Yeah, I could sense something was there.
Were you frightened by it, or just intrigued?
I was more, I mean, yeah, there was definitely a chill, you know, like, yeah, there was definitely I wouldn't say I was scared or terrified or anything like that, but it was like, how do you explain it? It was just kind of like this, what just happened?
Exactly, you know? Yes, yeah. Because when it's real, you don't get really frightened by it. You're more just, like, stunned.
Right.
Like, what's going on right now? You ever seen anything move on its own?
Have I ever seen what now?
Anything move on its own?
Yes. This was actually, was it earlier this year? Trying to think. Anyway, I have a game night, right, where I have friends come over on Sunday, and we sit around, we play Uno and dice and, or euchre, you know, games, just the games that don't take television. And, it was me and my friend Amy and my friend Shelby. And there was this potato chip bag next to my microwave, and I'm talking to them about something, and I could hear this crinkling, and I'm like, you know, what's going on here? Like, it was distracting me, you know, because I'm like, it's an abnormal sound that shouldn't be happening. And so I start looking at this shit bag, and they're noticing that my focus is shifting. And so they start looking at the chip bag, and they see that it's wiggling. And I'm thinking, like, is there a mouse getting into my chips, you know? So I get up, and I yank on the chip bag, and I'm looking all around. No mouse. Don't find any mouse. I'm like, that's weird, you know? And like I said, it was just wiggling, so I set it back down. And it starts again, almost immediately. It starts again. And it jerked pretty hard. And I was like, and I'm sitting back down, and I said, if there's something there, can you move that chip bag hard? And it slid across the countertop. It just slid across the countertop. Oh, and we all saw that. So when that happened, I got my phone out, and so did my friend Amy, and we started recording. And this is awesome. I start asking questions. I say, if there's someone there, can you speak to us? And in the audio of the camera, a woman's voice goes, watching you. And I actually have, I put it on my TikTok. I can link you to that.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, that was nuts. Watching you.
My dad and I got an EVP once because my dad was a Native American, so we've always been a very spiritual family. But we were trying to get EVPs just because that's what we did. and like it was the clearest EVP I ever heard. Just like you and I are talking now, you heard a woman say, "Hello, Butch, can you hear me?"
Holy, wow.
Oh my god! Like my dad jumped out of his skin. He wasn't scared of this, but he was like, "That's the clearest I've ever heard."
Yeah, that's nuts. And like, my thing is like, people talk about, oh, it's radio interference or it's television interference. It's like, no, if it's saying, "Hello, Butch, can you hear me?" And I mean, like, that's relevant, right? Like, it's your dad's name. Like, you know what I mean? Like, radio and television is pretty easy to figure out. And like, okay, like guitar amplifiers and stuff like that, they might catch some radio interference and stuff like that. Like that happens, But when it comes to cameras or audio recorders, like the Tascam audio recorder and stuff like that I have and that I used, they have RF shielding built in, and there's filters built into them just in case something happens to get through. And it seems they make it pretty difficult for something like that to be what's causing, this phenomena.
Unexplainable.
Right. It's not, there's no one on the radio whispering, "I can't answer you," That's just not happening, and or swear words. Not that I have any swear words, but well, yeah, no, I don't. Not that I can recall. But you can't swear on the radio, man. You get fined like hundreds of thousands of dollars for that.
Yeah, it's like a Howard Stern.
Yeah. So it just, that stuff doesn't happen, And, I understand, again, Occam's razor. The most logical explanation is probably the answer, But these things seem to defy physics and logic.
Just don't know why Kent chose the paranormal to fake, or it's just because he faked it because it's hard to prove he's faking it.
Yeah, well, from what I understand, he originally wanted to do, he was like, there's a way you can make money on YouTube, and from what I understand, he originally wanted to try comedy.
Oh yeah, that's right, he did, totally.
And then at some point he realized that the paranormal thing, it was probably more lucrative.
And he's not funny.
Right. It's harder to be funny than it is to be like, a Rod Sterling type of person where you're interesting and, like we said, he's very gifted in the way that he speaks and how he speaks. He's an interesting guy, So I think he played on his strengths and he realized, what, I could probably do something here. I think it took off beyond his dreams at one point where he's like, oh my God, like this is going, this is working. And that's when he really started, elaborating more. But I definitely think he probably, like I said, I think he probably experienced some things in that house. And then, I think it just kind of, it snowballed from there, if I had to guess.
You think he was in it for money and fame and fortune and all that?
Well, I mean, it's definitely a motivator. The YouTube grind is hard, and just doing it out of the kindness of your heart because you want to share this stuff with people just because. Give me a break, dude. You're not gonna sit there. I know what it takes to put something together. Okay, and I will sit at my computer for 4 or 5 hours just to get 4 minutes of something that's badass, or what I think is good in production and stuff. So, and his videos, they're not, as I said, they're pretty poorly constructed. I said that in the documentary. And I wonder if, I don't know if he does that on purpose or if that's really just his skill level. But, you know, regardless, it still takes work. It still takes time. You have to sit through, you know, all of this stuff. It takes hours and hours and hours to do. You're not going to do that just because it's fun, you know? I mean, you always do stuff. We always put work into something like that, hoping that someone's going to notice it. You know, I was in a band for years and years, and we put a lot of work. We grinded really hard. We would go play shows. We would practice 3 days a week. We would spend weeks worth of time. I'm talking from 1 o'clock Monday morning to, you know, 1 o'clock Monday morning, 3 weeks later, you know, that amount of time and hours on recordings. Not obviously all at once, but I'm saying, you know, time accumulated, because we wanted people to know who we were. We worked. We wanted to create things for ourselves, sure, but we wanted people to.
You wanted to be noticed.
We wanted people to love us,
mm-hmm.
Sure.
I totally get that. Yeah.
It's really not much different, you know.
Do it because you love it, but you also hope that it will take off.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And it is fun. You know, creating videos is fun. It's a lot of fun. And, you know, I mean, it can start off pretty innocently, as I've said. It can start off pretty innocently, but at some point, you want to start getting paid for it. You know? And you're going to monetize as soon as you possibly can. And you're going to hope that, I mean, especially with the way social media is now and the way that people get famous compared to what it was like when we were growing up. You know, any jack-off with a camera that, you know, I mean, it's crazy the things that go viral. I saw a dude, I'm not joking, I saw a dude slam dunk a basketball and take a shit on the fucking court, and that got huge views. It's like, that dude slam dunked a basketball and took a shit. and he got paid for that, you know? It's amazing what goes viral, what people relate to somehow or think is funny. And it's just like, you never know, you know? So I think it's easy to get sucked into wanting to be the next big thing, you know? Especially if your life has been mundane and you haven't really done much, and everyone close to you might, you know, look at you as behind where you should be in your life or whatever. You know, grab opportunity as it comes to you, right?
You didn't find anybody else to talk about Kent on camera in a positive way? No. Well, I reached out to Kent and was like, you know, hey, like, if you have anybody that knows you, that would be willing to talk about you with me and tell me good things about you, I would like to talk with them. And he stonewalled me on that, you know. He was like, you know, what was it? He said, he gave me a really long text, which I'm, you know, I hate to do it because I really like to sit down with Kent in an interview, you know, one last interview, and just, and bring up all of this stuff with him. Like, I'm not afraid of it at all. But I feel like he deserves the ability to defend himself. And so I you know, I gave him that opportunity, and he shut me down and said that, you know, we will not lower ourselves to this kind of drama and this kind of, you know, state just to, you know,
basically he was blowing it off as it was beneath him to do so, and that nobody that knew him would care to talk about it either. And I tried to convince him, like, I mean, I didn't try. I tried as hard as I could without being annoying about it, but it's like, probably be in your best interest to find somebody to talk good about you, man, because, this isn't, again, I'm not trying to make you look bad, I'm trying to, it's not fair. There's obviously somebody out there that thinks Ken's a great guy.
Well, he is. He actually has really great qualities.
Yeah, I felt that too, I mean, the first night we were there, he bought pizza, and that's like a sure way to win me over, like, feed me and I'm going to be your friend, bro. And he was fun, he was funny, he was loose, he joked around with us, we had a good time, it just, he just, I guess once he really realized that the angle was a little bit more deep than just this being some sort of fluff thing, that he kind of, he went the other way with it. He realized that since I was even questioning the validity of his claims, that put me on his shit list.
Well, you're on that list of a lot of people.
Yeah, well.
Well, you will be,
I've read won't be the last.
I've read the comments where people are getting angry at you and you're trying to be so diplomatic, like I'm not shitting on Kent.
Right. Yeah, but they won't hear it. And a lot of them have already made up their mind before they've seen the conclusion, which I think is also ridiculous. But then again, though, they're on the other side of that coin. There are people who are like, I love Kent, I adore Kent, I think he's great, but I also want to know. I want to know the truth, and I appreciate what you're doing. And it's like, well, cool. There are reasonable people out there who like Kent, and that's refreshing.
Did you think it was going to turn into a 3-part documentary?
Well, to be honest with you, I was inspired in a way by this documentary called Hellier. Mm-hmm. That documentary came out in like 2019, I think it was. And at that point, they were the only people, they introduced the Estes method on a big scale with that documentary. They were the first people to really do that. So when I was doing the Estes method in Kent's house, nobody was doing it on YouTube yet. And I was kind of like excited about that because I kind of planned on having this thing done way like a few years ago, but life got in the way. So anyway, that's like a 6-part, 7-part series. And I was like, man, it would be cool to like have like a series of, because if I'm going to go there for 3 days, how much, no one's going to sit through a 3-hour documentary, and if I've got this much footage, and I have all this, I didn't know where it was going to go. I really had no idea that it was going to be as deep as it's gotten, which I think I mentioned that before. So I hoped for like a 3-part series or at least a 2-part series, because I wanted to be able to like really convey what I was trying to do. And I didn't think I could do that in just an hour or an hour and a half even. I wanted to be able to spend time on each subject. You've got the first episode, which is the subject, Kent Burris in the Lamp House. That's the introduction. This is him. This is what he says. This is how he is. This is how he's presenting himself. This is who I am. The second episode, the opposition, the other side of the claims, the other, I don't want to call it the negative side because it's not that it's negative. And then the third episode to be conclusion. This is where I'm at, knowing everything that I know now. This is where this is the resolve. you know, and I think each part deserves its own, you know, in-depth look as to how did we get here? How did we get to this resolve? You know, I think it's important because there's nothing worse than like your favorite book being, you know, 6 or 7 hours worth of reading or longer, and it's cut down to an hour and a half in a movie because they have to cut all this stuff out, all this very important stuff. So I just felt it was important to be able to really give each subject the light that it you know deserves. I don't know. What do you think about all of it?
The documentary?
Well, no, I mean, not just a documentary, but I mean, you know, knowing everything that you know now, you know, from where you first started with Kent to where you and I are right now, you know, what are your thoughts?
Well, first thought is, how the hell is any of it real, that we're actually at this point talking about it? Because when I first met Kent, you know, I never thought that he'd be kind of YouTube famous. I never thought that he would start all this drama. I never would have thought any of that. I never would have thought I would be on film talking about it.
Well, I'm glad you are.
I said I'd do it.
Say again?
So, well, it's one of those things where I said I would do it, and I figured it'd be at least a little bit of information for you.
Yeah, well, it's great information, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, I hope the same thing for you. You know, I hope that you know, you get some sort of closure or some sort of just anything rewarding out of us talking. You know, because you know, even after this whole thing is over and done with, you and I are going to remain friends. We've developed a friendship over the past couple of years. I know it's been months where we haven't spoken with each other and stuff like that, but I've really enjoyed developing a friendship with you. You know, it's been, I guess it all started from me seeing Nuke's top fives. You know, never thought that I would be where, you know, we are right now. Just because I watched a video one night when I was stoned.
Travel all the way to Maine and get caught in one of the biggest paranormal shit.
Life is fun.
Do you think Kim's going to be remembered more as a hoax or the truth? Or as real, rather?
If anybody has any sense, I think it's probably going to... I mean, I think...
It's hard.
Yeah, it is. I would like to believe that if anybody follows in the footsteps that I've set, that they would give it the attention that it deserves and really ask themselves the same questions I did. And I would hope that they would come to the same conclusion. Yeah, it's real, but it doesn't matter because he faked things, you know. And I think ultimately, it's, again, I'm not trying to destroy anybody, but it's just, I would really hope that, you know, people really start getting smart and start catching on and start being able to think instead of just eat everything up. You know, that's what we do anymore. We eat up all this media and we consume. We never stop to think for ourselves. We just, oh, it's entertaining. It's entertainment. I love this. It's entertaining. I love this guy. I mean, it's easy to get wrapped up in that stuff, but man, just stop for a minute and think. Use your brain. Like,
how is this possible?
Say that again.
That's like what I used to think when I was working on the show briefly, like every week he would have this new thing he was releasing with this new piece of evidence. And all I could think was, how is it possible that he's getting this every week? Like more stuff than I've witnessed in my lifetime every week.
Right.
Because I can go I can go a year without witnessing anything paranormal.
Right. Most people go their whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there are people out there who go their whole lives and want to experience it or do go looking for it. You know, And that a lot of times, those people end up turned, right? Like, well, I wanted my whole life to experience something. I went and looked for it. I never found it, so therefore it must not be real. And that's a reasonable conclusion to come to if you've gone through that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying anything against anybody about that. But it's also completely unfair to those people when you're doing the kinds of things that Kent's doing.
False validation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he's gonna stop?
Eventually. Eventually, he'll either be kicked out of that house.
For not paying his rent.
Right. He'll eventually either get kicked out of that house, or his videos are going to slow down, and he's not going to be... I mean,
He's dying already.
Yeah, they're slowing down already. He's generating passive income. Like, that is definitely a thing, because his videos, I don't know how much, I mean, I don't have... I'm sure there's ways I can look at estimations and stuff. I know there are. But, yeah, I mean, eventually he'll probably, if it slows down enough, and yeah, he might quit, But then again, I mean, who knows, If he knows what's good for him, he should stick to the real stuff and try to redeem himself.
Pivot away from the bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that's a bit more admirable, but at the same time, it's like, well, once a bullshitter, always a bullshitter, right? Right. So it again, it's hard to tell.
It's hard to believe anything out of his mouth. But that happened to me at Anglers, because I remember one day at Anglers we were in the kitchen and we were just talking, and he kept like one-upping everybody. Like, I think that was the day he said he was the helicopter pilot, or the aircraft for putting out fires. And I remember thinking either this guy has had the most interesting life ever, or he's full of shit.
Right. Right.
And if he was that interesting, why the fuck is he a fry cook?
Right. Dude, if you're a helicopter pilot, go get a job as a helicopter pilot, taking people around the city. Like,
it's Maine.
As a wait. There's things like that. Like, I know that there's like helicopter rides in Chicago, where you pay somebody to take you up and just fly around the city so you can see Chicago from the sky. Like, that exists. That
sightseeing, totally.
Normal, but yeah, really, like.
Why would you go from the FBI to fry food? New York Times to fried food.
Right.
Like, I went to fried food because I needed money.
Mm-hmm.
He said he went to it because he was getting bored sitting around his house all day. Because he said that he had a pension from being a detective, but after he was involved in a shootout, he moved up here for a simpler life.
Okay. Yeah, all I heard about any of that was, so he wasn't working at the time that I went there. I thought he was retired. I didn't really know how old he was, but I thought he was retired. And when he told me, because I had asked him, like, what kind of hobbies, did you have? And I was talking about, like, as a family man raising your children, what kind of hobbies did you guys, what did you like to get into? What did you guys do for fun? And it was like he was aching to say this to me. He's like, I can't answer that. And I'm like, you can't answer question about what you did when you were a family man? He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can answer. He's like, the reason why I said I couldn't answer that was because, I have a disability case, and I just, I can't disclose any kind of stuff that I do for fun, because he didn't want, when you're trying to get a disability and there's some sort of investigation going on, you cannot be seen doing anything physical whatsoever.
Oh, shit, that's right. When I was pitching it, he told me I couldn't put his name directly on it because of that. I forgot all about that. He did not want Kent Burris connected anywhere to that at all.
Right. And it's like, I mean, okay, if that, whatever, I mean, you're not the only person in the world that's done that, but it was just weird because, like I said, it was like he was aching to deny me stuff. I asked him, I said, do you have any pictures or any videos, any old-time family photos and videos and stuff that you could supply me with? Because, I'm trying to make I want to make a legit documentary here. I want to make something interesting. And he was like, yeah, you're not getting any of that. And I was like, okay. And he said, well, I can provide you with a picture of me next to an ambulance, which I never got. And that was pretty much it. That was pretty much the only thing he said I could have, and he never gave it to me.
That's a little weird.
Yeah, I mean... 60
years on the planet, not a handful of photos to show?
Or videos or anything where you're having fun, when people love you. Like, come on, they don't exist. But he didn't have it. And I don't know why, I mean, however, I pay $1 million, money that I don't have. If I were somebody from Netflix coming to him and hey, we're making this documentary about you, provided you want to do it, and I asked him for that stuff, he would have given it to me with no problem. I mean, I don't know why it would be that way, but I mean, it's just, I guess, credentials, or I don't know. It just...
Did he ever talk to you about Netflix?
Say again?
Did he ever talk to you about Netflix?
The only thing, so I actually wanted to pitch this documentary to Netflix. And I mentioned that to him, and he said, Netflix will never, they won't answer you. They're not gonna take you. And I don't know if he was saying it because maybe he wanted Netflix all to himself, or, which that seems to be a reasonable thought, right? Because from what I understand, that was something that he always wanted. That's something that you were saying, like he wanted these deals. He wanted these big deals. So if I go and I pitch my documentary to Netflix about him, well, then he's cut out of the loop, right? Because it's my documentary. So, maybe, which I don't even know if that's true. I mean, there were no contracts signed. Like, I tried to get him to sign a contract for me, saying that I could use, this is before he told me about his non-compete agreement that doesn't exist. But I made up a contract that I could use, which I didn't even need to, but that I could use the videos that were on his YouTube channel for the documentary. And he was like, well, the way it's worded, it seems like you say that you can just take my videos and do whatever with them. And it's like, well, no, that's not true. So I rewrote it, and I sent it to him, and he never signed it. He avoided that whole thing altogether. He didn't want to sign anything. Which, I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. I didn't need him to, because it's all under fair use. Fair use. As long as it's a documentary and an educational video, I can do whatever I want to with this, as long as it's facts. It's got, I can't lie and make up a bunch of BS about him and slander him. But as long as it's facts and stuff that I can back up, you can use whatever you want to,
Nothing you can do about it.
Right, exactly.
I like
this thing. He was hoping that I wasn't smart enough to know that.
He thinks he's smarter than everybody, that's the problem. And if he's not smarter than you, he'll, make up a fake career that'll put you to shame.
Right.
Like the FBI bullshit.
Yeah.
Did he tell you he was in the FBI?
No. He told me he was a secret agent or a special agent for the police, some police force down in Florida. And that his job was basically that he had informants that would come to him and tell him, there's this guy that's got the drugs, or there's this guy that's got, boosted items or whatever, and he would go and report that to the police. He never really said he was a cop or anything like that. He just said that he basically was an informant for the cops.
Did you believe him at the time?
No.
Even that early on, you had your suspicion.
Yeah, well, but he showed me this badge. And like I said, like, I immediately was like, I bet I could find that on Amazon. And so that night, I looked it up and was like, oh, here it is. You can find the several badges that say special agent on them on Amazon, and they're like $5, $6.
Yeah.
The most expensive one is like maybe 20.
David and I did the same thing when you tried pulling that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, who the hell gets a badge that says special? Unless you're like, special needs or something.
Yeah.
Did you say anything about the New York Times?
Yes. I have him on video saying that. I asked him what his background was, or if he had any kind of training on video editing or anything like that. And he said that he worked for a TV station that was an affiliate with the New York Times, and that he would excuse me, he would edit videos for them, but that was all of the training that he had, and really it wasn't really very much. But I paid for a background check on Kent to see what his jobs were, and really, I don't know how reliable the one I have. It has a lot of addresses for him, but it only had 2 jobs listed. One of them was some company called Massey, Massdy.
Oh,
and the other one was the Kent Burris Home Improvement Company.
Yeah, that Massey one was what was it, pest control or exterminator, something like that related?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't look into that, but I remember you telling me that, and when I was talking with him, or when I was sending him messages about everything that recently, then I mentioned that to him. I was like, look, I know about Kent Burris Home Improvements. I know about the pest control job that you had. I was letting him know, hey, I've done my research here. And I was just doing that just to kind of let him know, that this is a real thing. This is something, and you should, if I know this much, it would probably be in your best interest to sit down and talk to me, and it will look bad for you if you choose not to do that. I'm not making him look bad. He's doing it himself. He's doing it himself by choosing to avoid the conversation and defend himself. Maybe because, I can't speculate. I have my thoughts, but by choosing to avoid it, you're running away from the problems. It's not going to help anything. It's just a bad idea. Face your problem, man. Face your problems, and what is it? Fear. Face everything and respond.
It'd almost be better if he did sit down with you and absolutely reject all your claims. That'd still look better than him to nothing.
Absolutely. Well, it would look like something. It would look like he was willing to sit down. There's at least that. You'd at least have that going for him.
It's really humbling. To be called out on your own bullshit, you learn a lot about yourself.
Totally.
At 60 years old, I don't think he's going to get to that point.
Yeah. I don't know. I have friends that I've been friends with for years and years, and when they're screwing up, if they need to hear and you're screwing up, I say, hey, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing, man? Why are you screwing up like this? And I think when you have a friend like that, that's more valuable than somebody that just enabled you.
Absolutely.